Hey there, welcome to the Workplace Culture Makeover Masterclass. It's the top of the hour, so we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about different things you can do to build and sustain a positive work environment. Now, you're here to learn about building and sustaining a positive culture, and I'm going to tell you exactly where several organizations fail in their culture efforts. And I'm going to give you a bunch of advice about what you can do instead so you avoid those failures. So get out your pad and paper, close the door, use this time as time to learn, remove all those distractions, turn your cell phone off, be ready to learn. I'm going to give you a ton of tips. Also, I encourage you to remove all of your I knows, your I can'ts, your I'm not sure's. Just use this time, use this next hour to have an open mind and just take it in. This webinar is based on all of my years' experience working with organizations to create better work environments. And I know without a doubt that these are the things that you have to do to be successful in culture change. Now, there's a whole lot of areas to focus on in culture change. Of course, I can't walk you through every single step in just an hour, but I've picked out some of the main areas, again, where I see organizations aren't focusing or are sort of failing, and wanted to help you overcome those challenges. So you're in the right place if you want to change your organizational culture but don't know how. If you know that a positive work environment will save your business time and money in the long run. If you want to be a hero to your workforce by giving them a better work environment, you're in the right place. Or maybe you're here because you know creating a positive work environment is an employer's moral and ethical responsibility, and I personally truly believe that. Or maybe you're sick and tired of dealing with all the drama that comes with the negative work environment. Or maybe you're just ready to elevate your skills in HR or leadership, and understanding culture is part of that journey you're on. So we're going to talk today about a few different areas. We'll talk about surveys. We'll talk about creating strategic plans. We'll talk about using your vision and core values, and then we'll finish off with some tips for onboarding. Now, if you stick around until the very end, if you stay for the full 60 minutes, I will send you a list of 30 ways to bring your core values to life. It's a pretty cool list, lots of fun ideas, but you have to stay on all the way until the end of the webinar in order to get the list from me. So let me go ahead and introduce myself in case you haven't met me or haven't attended one of my webinars before. So I was the Director of Human Resources for a nonprofit organization in San Diego where I live, and I found myself working with a workplace bully. I found myself working with someone who was an uber excessive micromanager. He yelled. He clearly didn't trust people around him. He talked down to the president, in fact, quite a lot. He just made life really hard. And I personally felt bullied by this person. And as the director of HR, I also experienced all of the problems he created for the organization. I dealt with a whole lot of turnover in his department. I spent a lot of time counseling his employees. And I spent a lot of time getting counseling from another manager down the hall, you know, whenever I had a frustrating interaction. So lots and lots of wasted time and effort, all because of this person and the way he behaved. I spent a lot of time in the president's office talking to the president about, you know, this person's behavior and sort of begging him to please step in and put a stop to it. And the president would always just say, well, that's just how he is. I don't know why it bothers you. Or can't you tell that person who's complaining to just be the bigger person? And so looking back, the president was fairly conflict avoidant and, you know, just wasn't willing to step in and put a stop to this behavior. Well, during all of that time, I started getting my master's degree, and I ended up writing a paper on the topic of workplace bullying for one of my classes. And I became fascinated with that topic, and I have been obsessed with workplace bullying ever since. And I've written a few books about it and traveled the world speaking on it, and that has been a topic of my obsession. Well, once I got out of grad school, I decided to start my business, you know, an HR consulting business that was focused on ending workplace bullying. And what I realized over time is that I could not have a business focused on ending bad behavior. What I needed was a business that was focused on creating a positive work environment. So through this paradigm shift and lessons learned, I realized that the antidote, if you will, for workplace bullying is a positive work environment. If you have a positive work environment, you do not have workplace bullying. You do not have harassment. And instead, you have happy, thriving employees who are coming to work, doing their work well, engaging positively with customers. So over time, in being an expert in workplace bullying, I've had to become an expert in creating a positive work environment. And so that is the other topic of my passion, is creating a positive work environment. And I've had the fortunate experience to be published in quite a few pretty cool places: Forbes, USA Today. I've been on Time.com, Inc. magazine. So that's been pretty neat to have my ideas out there in the world in those major venues. And my clients through Civility Partners range from Fortune 500s down to little nonprofits. I've worked with several universities, hospitals, lots of big businesses, and lots of little businesses, and everything in between. So all of these tips that I'm going to give you really come from all of these different environments, and in the end, all of these industries who go through culture change, it's all the same process. So I wanted to talk with you first about two paradoxes that I have noticed out there in the world. So the first paradox is that virtually all academic researchers and consultants say that incivility, bullying, and harassment are organizational problems. And most advice out there, though, is focused on individual solutions. So that's pretty fascinating to me. So everybody agrees that these bad behaviors are an organizational issue, but most of the advice is focused on the person who's going through that problem. The other paradox I noticed is that culture is very intangible and unreachable, or it feels that way, but you need tangible, reachable, actionable steps to achieve the culture that you want. So that's a little bit of a paradox. And the other thing I've noticed about culture advice is most of what's out there is very theoretical. So any of the books that I've read around culture change or articles I've read, it always feels very theoretical for me. So for example, the book Change the Culture, Change the Game. It's a popular book. It's got the triangle model, if you've ever read it. And it's all about this triangle and how you're supposed to get all of these things in this triangle to happen. But it never actually tells you how to go about doing that. And that's what was frustrating for me. When I read books, I want to understand exactly what I'm supposed to do. Give me the checklist so I can go and do it. I don't care about how you came to your model. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. So feeling frustrated about all of this theoretical information really drove me to become very interested in exactly what the steps are to have an impact on culture change. Tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do, and that's the information I've really sought out. And that's the way I operate with clients. It's all very, here's the first step, here's the next step, here's the next step after that. So let's go ahead and jump into the webinar topic here. So let's start at the beginning, a very good place to start. Of course, a good place to start with culture is a survey. So you want to do a survey before you do culture change so that you can benchmark where you are now, and also so you can understand what you need to be focusing on. You need to understand what problems the organization faces or what the employees think needs to happen with your culture. And a lot of times I get calls from HR professionals who want to do a survey, and they're ready to jump in, and they're excited to jump in and do that survey, but they haven't thought through the whole process of the survey yet. They're just kind of looking at the survey. And so I always suggest taking a step back before you do the survey and understanding the answers to 14 different questions before you implement the survey. Now, I don't have time to share all 14 questions here on this webinar, but I want to point out some of the most important questions that you need to have answered before you do a survey for your employees. The first thing you want to understand, the first question you want to ask is, what's the objective here? So understand what exactly is it that we're trying to get at. What's the point of the survey? Are you looking at climate? Are you looking at internal communication? Do you want to understand engagement? What exactly do you want to understand, and why do you want to understand it? So the reason I give this tip is one example that pops into my head. I had she was the CHRO of an organization, and she was in the corporate office, managing all of the HR for all of these different work sites all throughout the United States. And this company does engagement surveys, and she realized that this particular work site that she had called me to discuss had pretty low engagement survey scores. And so she wanted to hire me to work specifically with this one work site to address their engagement problems because they had low engagement scores. So they hired me on to do this, and I went and met with the administrator of this work site. And when we sat down and I asked her, tell me what you think the issues are, she immediately said, communication. And I remember she was sort of on the edge of her chair and her eyes got all big. And she's like, communication, that's our problem. And our whole conversation was around communication. It was around the fact that departments weren't communicating very well with each other. She recognized she wasn't communicating well, you know, as the top person. She wasn't dispersing information well. So she just recognized communication was really our problem, and our whole conversation really ended up centering around all of these issues and how they all seem to really point back to communication being the issue. And so I did a survey for the organization that included some stuff around engagement because that's what the CHRO wanted me to ask about, but ultimately the survey really focused on communication. And so it's a good example because I just think, what if I had gone in there saying, okay, let's fix the engagement problem and done a survey around engagement, and that's what we were focused on. We would have missed out on a lot of other action steps that we needed to be taking around communication first. So again, just take a step back and really think through, what is it that we need to understand? Is it really engagement, or is it really something else? So that you're sure to collect the right kind of information. The next question you want to have answered before you implement a survey is what's the communication plan? And at this point, you kind of have to think of yourself like a marketer. You have to market the survey to your workforce so that you can get maximum participation and so that you can build trust in the process of doing the survey. So you have to think through, what is your communication plan before, during, and after the survey? So there's a lot on here. Let me walk you through it. Let's talk through what your communication plan might look like. So before you ever do the survey, you want to start communicating about it. And that communication should come from the top leader of the organization. And any emails that go out from the top leader should be around the rationale for the survey, why participating in the survey is important, and also sharing that the results of the survey will be shared with the entire workforce. So there's a ton of evidence that if people are promised the results of a survey, they're more inclined to participate. So you need the leader to essentially market the survey. You need the leader to say, I'm seeing that there's some problems. I'm really interested in understanding what they are. I can't understand them unless you participate. Please work with me. I'm really interested in fixing this organization's issues that I see. So you want the leader to just really advertise, we need your participation and this is a good thing. From there, during the survey, of course, if you're the keeper of the survey, which I imagine you might be, you'd be the one sending out the email with the link to the survey and that kind of thing. But in addition to those logistical emails that go out, you still need the leader to send out emails that are, again, marketing the survey, getting people excited about it, reminding them of the importance to solve it, and sharing the response rates. You might say, hey, so far we only have 20%, we need more, and just getting people on board. And all throughout this whole process, you need to make sure that you're ensuring people that their responses will be confidential. Now, once the survey closes, within 7 days of the survey closing, you absolutely need to communicate. The leader needs to communicate. You need to say, thank you for participating, share how many people responded, and advise that you're looking for people to participate in solving whatever issues come up in the survey. And advise that the results are being analyzed and that everyone will indeed receive the results, by a certain day. Now, you're not going to send out the entire survey report, all of the dirty details. People don't need to see the whole thing. But you do need to advertise what the results were in themes. So I encourage my clients to send out an email that essentially says, here are the top 5 themes we saw in the survey, here are the problems we saw, here are the good things we saw, and not to worry, we are going to take steps to solve these things. So that's what the email needs to be. And then finally, within 14 days of close, again, thanking the employees for participating and giving them that detailed summary. And then pretty important is to provide at least 3 immediate action items related to the survey, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but really saying, you know, we saw these problems and we're already taking steps to solve them. That's going to be really important to building trust with your organizational members. So another question to think about is how you're going to ensure confidentiality. Now, if you're doing surveys through SurveyMonkey, which is who we use, SurveyMonkey offers a radio button to select, you know, so that you can ensure you won't know who submitted which survey. But also be careful in the comments. So if you have any open-ended questions in your comments, you might be able to see who said them. People may talk about certain scenarios, which will give you some idea of who wrote that comment. And so you really have to be careful about who gets access to the survey results. And if you're the keeper of the survey and the survey results and you're the one putting the report together, you can't hear me. Uh-oh. You can hear me again? Sounds like I cut out. We all good? Okay, sorry about that. So you'll want to make sure that you pick through the comments and remove any identifying information. And if you're the keeper of the survey, that maybe you're the one and only person who sees the actual raw data, so that nobody else sees that identifying information. So just be aware of that in your survey comments. Now here's a really big place where I see failures in surveys. So this is a really important question to make sure you have an answer to before you do a survey. And I see this a lot where HR, you know, they get excited about doing a survey, they get permission to do the survey, and they go and do it, and then they don't have permission to act on the survey. So now they've got all this data, people said they're unhappy about this and that, and HR doesn't have the ability to fix this and that because the CEO is not on board with it. So in addition to getting permission to do a survey, make sure you have permission to spend time and money on whatever the results are. So before you do the survey, you need to have that permission and that go ahead, and you want to have people in place to help you address the survey results. Another problem I've seen in my day is leaders being offended by the results. And so it's important to have that conversation with your leader that, hey, there may be things in the survey that we're not happy about, but we have to take them in. We're asking for people's opinions, and we have to be okay with what they say and be willing to address it. So for example, we actually did a survey for an organization, and the CEO came back and basically said, I don't think this is the way it is around here. This isn't true. I don't think this is, you know, real information. He really was very offended by what was in there and really didn't take it in. And in fact, people in their comments had written that they were pretty scared to leave a comment because they were so afraid of the CEO, and they, you know, were so unhappy at the organization that they were afraid to leave a comment. So they would say things like, I'm so afraid to leave a comment, but I'm going to do it anyway because you've asked, so here it goes. And then the CEO is coming back and saying, I don't believe this, this isn't true. So that culture was damaged even more because now that lack of trust is just, you know, even greater. So just make sure that you have permission to act on those survey results. Lastly, the last question I'll talk about in this webinar is thinking about who your survey champions are. So of course your leader's a survey champion, you're a survey champion, but I also recommend getting your managers involved. So your managers should be telling their employees, hey, don't forget to fill out the survey, or maybe even you know, having people schedule time in their calendar to make sure that they're taking the survey. Also, employees can be survey champions. So for example, one client was sharing, we were having a meeting, and this one employee shared a story that several people in her department weren't planning on taking the survey, and she was asking them about, you know, hey, have you taken the survey yet? And they'd say, no, I don't think I'm going to. And she really encouraged them to do it. She really said, hey, they're asking for our opinion. Why not? Why wouldn't you do it? They're swearing they're going to act on it. Why wouldn't you take advantage of this opportunity? And so she herself really helped get a lot of people to participate in the survey just by having those conversations. So if you have employees that are sort of leaders of the pack, they have that charisma, people tend to listen to them, reach out to those employees and ask them to encourage people to take the survey. So just some kind of last important tips around surveys. All communication around the survey must appear urgent, and all communication around your action items must appear urgent. So it has to come from a place of like, you know what, I'm seeing some disengagement here and I'm worried about it. We've got to understand what's going on. You have to take the survey. Please take it so we can act on this. I don't want you to be disengaged. You know, this is urgent. The sky is falling. That's how the communication has to come out. All follow-through has to appear urgent, as I said. Celebrate and advertise any small wins. So once the survey is over, celebrate that. And every time you do something that pushes your culture forward, celebrate those wins. Market them, email about them, have parties around them. You have to celebrate the small wins. Be open to talking. So recognize again that you know, there may be things in the survey that you're not happy about and you didn't like to see, but you have to be open to talking about the survey results. Have an open door, really and truly. And finally, be objective. Don't take offense to what's in there. And don't try to persuade the employees that they should think differently. They've shared their opinions with you because you asked, so you just have to take that. So I'm just curious, how's everyone doing? Is this sounding like good information? Let me pull out my questions box here, and I see a question. Let me answer it for you. Okay, will a copy of the slides be available is one question. The answer is no, I won't be offering up the slides, but I will be sending out a recording of the webinar, and you'll get that a little later today, so you should be all good there. Another question, thoughts about surveys that try to track results by departments and groups. I think that's a great thing to do. So if you can understand that engagement is really low in one department compared to all the other departments, then that's good information, and you can address that department manager specifically or find out what's going on in that department specifically to address that. So I think that's a perfectly grand idea. Any other questions or thoughts? All right, I'm seeing a lot of, this is good information, this is great, thank you so much. Does group tracking undermine confidentiality? I don't think so, though it depends on how many people are in the department. So if you have a department of 3, for example, and all 3 people in that department say, we're unhappy with our department head, that obviously that makes confidentiality difficult. And maybe there's other ways you need to get information, like doing a 360 or something like that. So I think it depends on how big the department is. That can certainly make a difference. Let's see, manager participation if the results are used to evaluate. Bradford, could you expand on your question there? I don't understand what you mean. Manager participation if results used to evaluate. Could you give me a little more? All right, while he's typing up his answer, I'm going to keep moving forward. Let's see here. What about the organization wouldn't believe you about bullying, mobbing, and harassment? Okay, so the question is, I think, what happens if your organization doesn't believe that there's bullying, mobbing, and harassment? I would say the survey is all the more reason to do a survey so that you can prove it through, you know, all of this other data that's coming through. I definitely have found that leaders of organizations absolutely rely on quantitative data. So if you can say there's bullying in this organization and here's the data to prove it, then I think that's going to leave you better off. And to be quite honest, to be totally transparent, sometimes I ask questions in the survey that I know aren't necessarily scientifically valid, but they're important to ask because I need to point the CEO to the problem. So, for example, I might say essentially, you know, are you bullied and does it affect your production? And so then you can show the CEO like, hey, people are saying that the relationships they have here affect their production, it affects their customer service, so you're able to catch their attention that way. Okay, so back to Bradford's question. I've been in companies where CEO attacked the department managers over results that indicated the manager could be blamed. Employees didn't intend that. Okay, that's a great point, Bradford. So that goes back to my comment that leaders, before you send the survey out, leaders have to, you got to have that conversation with leaders that they are going to be open to the comments. They're not going to get defensive. They're not going to attack people. What should have happened instead is somebody needs to approach that manager in a very different way and say, hey, here were the results, can we talk about it? Or maybe the manager will change their behavior over the course of the culture change as everyone else is changing their behavior. So, don't do a survey if you think that that's what's going to happen, because all that does is make the problem worse. So that goes back to that statement about having that conversation with your leaders. Okay, hopefully I've answered everyone's questions. I'm going to move forward. So I'm not actually going to talk about creating survey questions in this webinar today. I want to move on to what to do with the survey results once your survey is over, and I will tell you how to get a hold of, we have a whole bank of survey questions and a whole lot more information about how to do surveys. I'll tell you how to get to that information a little later. Okay, so once you've done the survey, you've got your survey results. Now you need to create a strategic plan. And this is the template that I use with my clients. And I want to point you to that 7-day section. So you absolutely need some immediate responses to the data in order to build trust and show that there's good faith effort in making change. So people need to know that they were heard. Once the survey closes, they are watching carefully to see what happens. And so you've got to react to the survey data pretty quickly. So you've got to implement some low-hanging fruit within 7 days of the survey closing. So here are some examples of what that might look like. One option for low-hanging fruit might be to react to the results in a positive way. So unlike the comment where the CEO yelled at managers, what you want is for the leader to perhaps say, I see the survey data. I saw that people felt like they don't have access to me, so I've cleared my schedule for the next couple days and my door is open. I'd love for you to come and talk to me. Please make an appointment. And I've actually seen that with some of my clients where people said they felt like they didn't have access to the leader, and so the leader just reacted by saying, great, I hear you, my door is open, I'm clearing my schedule. So that is a fantastic way to build trust. Another example of low-hanging fruit might be to implement some new process. So if there's some comments or data that shows there's some process that's frustrating for people and it's easy to fix, then just fix it. And sometimes companies get caught up in all the rigmarole, but just fix it. People have said this is an issue. If you can act on it quickly, then do that. Another example of low-hanging fruit is to provide some sort of inexpensive item that maybe people are asking for. So one example in a company we worked with, people wanted another printer cartridge. They wanted to be able to get 2 printer cartridges at a time. Seems simple, but for whatever reason in their mind, they felt like it would, help with their efficiency a little bit. Just give it to them. It's an inexpensive way to say we heard you, we're responding, it's low-hanging fruit. Just give them the printer cartridge. Another example of low-hanging fruit might be to hold some sort of meeting. So maybe that the leader could say, hey, we have the survey data back. I'd like to talk about it openly, at a meeting. Let's have an all-staff meeting on Friday at 2 o'clock. And again, it's just really important that in that meeting, it's really about the leader disseminating information about the survey and what they saw, and not defending the organization. It just has to be an open place to talk. So that's an example of another opportunity for low-hanging fruit. So from there, you will then take the survey data and figure out a 6-month strategic plan and a 12-month strategic plan. That's what we do with our clients here. So just for example, in this survey, it looks like about 70% of respondents were unhappy. They were either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with how the information or how the organization talks about problems, and not knowing, people felt like they didn't know what was going on with the organization. And so what we did is put together an action committee. We put together a group of 8 employees to figure out what the data was and how to solve the data, or solve the problems that the data showed. And so this is an example of what we came up with. So you can see that literally here's this problem that's identified in the data. We have literally inserted it into the strategic plan, and then we're going to come up with things that we can do to address this problem. So you're sort of just taking your survey data, getting it into a strategic plan, and creating a strategic plan that ultimately solves all of the problems you see in the data. So this is an example of what a strategic plan might look like. So we've got objectives, which are high-level themes. So throughout this survey, we saw a lot of things pointing to internal communication needing improvement. And so, you know, then based on the data, there's all of these goals that we need to meet, and then all of these action items within those goals. So, you know, that's essentially what you do. Just work with your group of people to take your survey data, resolve it through a strategic plan, and then execute on the strategic plan. Okay, how are we doing so far? Does this sound good before I move on to talking about vision? You guys feeling good? I got a sounds great. I got a yes. Excited to hear more? All right, let's do it. Okay. Let me close my little box there. Okay, so part of what's going to go in your strategic plan is your vision. And so your vision statement is an important piece to culture change, and it's an important piece to your organization ultimately accomplishing whatever it's trying to accomplish. So I'm just curious, how many people know their vision statement by heart? How many people know their vision statement by heart? I've got an I do. Anybody else? Ours is posted in the office. Someone says we don't have one. Other comments? How many of you know your vision statement by heart? I'm seeing a few I don't knows. I'm seeing a few I do's. All right, so it looks like we're about 50-50 here. Okay, so let's talk through vision statements. So a vision statement is all about where you're going. It's the pin in the map. It's the guiding light, if you will, for your organization and what your organization wants to do in the world. Your vision statement is about what we're trying to get to. You should know your vision statement because it's going to guide everything you do with culture change as well. So just to kind of break this down here, a vision statement is all about where the organization is going. A mission statement is all about how you'll get there. And then your core values are all about how you'll behave. So let's look at just an example. A vision statement's where we're going. So this is a made-up nonprofit organization in San Diego to erase hunger and homelessness in San Diego County. That's a vision statement, where we're going. We are trying to erase hunger. How we'll get there is by educating the community, developing strong partnerships, and inspiring volunteers. And then here are some core values. So we're going to behave with integrity, respect, diversity, and compassion in order to achieve our vision. Now, let's look at these two different visions. So Vision A says to enrich the quality of life for those in our community, and Vision B says to erase hunger and homelessness. Now, these are both for, you know, a nonprofit I made up, but what I want to point you to is most of the time I see vision statements written like Vision B, where they are very focused on sort of the task at hand, that, you know, this organization is going to erase hunger. Vision A is a much better vision, and the reason is that it's much more open and general, and it sort of points every which way. So it points to perhaps homelessness and hunger in San Diego County. It could point to volunteers. It could point to employees. It could point to any which way. And so a more general vision is better because you can do more with it. And you're going to need a more general vision if you're going to use your vision to drive culture change. So the idea is that your vision and your culture are tied together. So let's look at, I just want to kind of look at this a little bit differently. So if your vision of your organization is written much more like Vision A, where it's more open and general, do you see how you could use this vision to set off culture change. So if this nonprofit in San Diego feels like we need to change our culture, we've gotten to a point where we have a negative culture and we need to improve it, the vision they already have to enrich the quality of life for those in our community can be used to guide the culture change because it still points to employees and volunteers. Versus Vision B, which is really focused on the task at hand, you cannot use Vision B to drive culture change. So what I recommend is if you have a vision that's like Vision A, it's more general and it's focused on your employees as well as your customers, then great, you're golden, good to go. If your vision statement is more like Vision B, you have a couple options. You can either remove Vision B and start over and create a new vision that's more emotional and profound and focused on employees. Or you could create a social vision that drives your culture. So the idea is either way, you need a vision to drive change. And any leadership article or book will tell you you need a vision in order for people to follow you. And so you need a vision for culture change. Vision A type of vision is much more preferable, but if you're not able to remove your vision and start over, then you can certainly create a vision that's specifically focused on culture change. Are you guys with me? Does this make sense? Somebody's got a company and a department vision. Okay. Other comments? Everybody's saying yes. Any questions about this? You might tell I'm very passionate about this. I get a little frustrated when I see vision statements that are too specific, and I also see vision statements that are really long. Sometimes you get a vision statement, it's like, 25 words, and nobody can remember that. So your vision statement has to be short and profound. So I want to talk with you about one company that actually does this really well, and that's Taco Bell, weirdly enough. Taco Bell's marketing tagline is Live Más. And Taco Bell also lives Más inside its organization. So Live Más is not only a marketing line, but it's something that they do internally. So, for example, Taco Bell's franchises are mostly owned by former employees. So what happens is you have an 18-year-old kid who comes into Taco Bell, makes minimum wage, doesn't know what they're going to do with themselves, and Taco Bell turns them into a business owner. Taco Bell wins and the 18-year-old kid wins because now they're a business owner. So Taco Bell, everything is about Live Más. They have scholarships. They do all kinds of things for their employees that are all under this umbrella of Living Más. And so that's a great example of really intertwining what's happening externally and internally. And that's what I would encourage you to do. So again, your vision is where you're going, mission is how you'll get there, and values are how you'll behave. So let's talk about your core values. So the other thing I recommend you do is turn your core values into core competencies. So let me ask you, how many of you know your core values by heart? Who knows your core values by heart at your organization? I'm seeing some I do nots and some I do's. I'm seeing 50-50. Any other comments on that? All right, so take your core values and turn them into core competencies, and that's how you hold people accountable to your core values. So your core values are all about how people are going to behave, and behavior and culture are one and the same. So you need to dictate how people behave in order to have a certain kind of a culture. So a core competency is defined as essentially a level of expertise or competence that someone has to have in order to be in a specific job. And jobs in your organization have their own competencies. For example, one of my assistants has to be good at research in order to do her job. That's a competency. The other assistant has to be good at creative stuff. She does marketing. So those jobs have their own competencies, but we also have core values, and anybody who works here at Civility Partners has to also be competent in our core values. So usually competencies are written out like this. You have the word that describes the competency and then a description of what the behavior looks like. So for example, if initiative is one of your competencies or one of your core values, then this is how it would look. The word initiative is the competency, and then here's what it looks like if someone has that competency in our organization. So let me break this down for you. So I was working with a company that was a chili hot dog chain of restaurants, and in talking with the HR professional there, he was telling me that this company was founded by great-grandpa long ago, and great-grandpa was really big on chili, and this was a chili hot dog stand that he started, and you could not skimp on the chili. And in fact, the rumor was that he'd actually fire people if he caught them skimping on the chili. So he just wanted his employees to load that chili on that hot dog. And so don't skimp on the chili was kind of a thing, you know, at this organization because of this story about great-grandpa. And so then in creating core values, we were able to tie the core values into this history. Don't skimp on service, don't skimp on quality, and don't skimp on fun. So now this chili hot dog chain of restaurants is saying, if you're going to work here, you have to be competent in customer service, competent in delivering quality, and competent in being fun. So what do? Again, this is what a competency looks like. So let's take those core values and put them into competencies. Customer service. Here's what it looks like at this chili hot dog restaurant. So now we've taken the core value of customer service and turned it into a core competency, and now we can hold people accountable to living our core values, and that's one of the major ways that we drive culture. Another example, quality work. Don't skimp on quality as the core value. Here is the core competency. If somebody, you know, is quality at this organization, this is what that means. And then fun, you can absolutely hold people accountable to being fun. For example, Southwest Airlines does it all the time. And so here's what it might look like to say, this is what the fun competency looks like at this chili hot dog stand. So from there, you take your core values that you've turned into core competencies and you put them in your performance evaluation form. And now people are being measured on the core values, and if people aren't living the core values, you can hold them accountable to that. Now, you also have to use your core values on a regular basis. So let me give you some ideas on how to do that. One way is to include behavior-based interview questions around your core values. So anybody that you hire in, you're sure is meeting your culture. You could plan book club discussions around books that incorporate your core values. So if one of your core values is resilience, for example, you could read books about resilience and have discussions about those books. You could challenge managers to work with their teams to ensure that they're doing things that align with your core values. You could ask each department to choose a core value and create a training around it. That's one of my favorites. Or you could hold a photo contest for your values and then choose one photo for each value. So those are just some examples, and as I mentioned, we've got a list of 30 ways to bring your core values to life. If you stay on till the end of the webinar, we will send that to you. But there it is, just a teaser. So in the end, don't compromise your values. And I see organizations do that all the time. They have core values and they don't do anything with them. They don't drive anything. They're just words on a website, and that's it. But you absolutely can use your values to drive culture change. How's this sounding? Does this sound like some good tips? Does this sound helpful and useful? Just curious to hear where you're all at. I got a great advice. I got a yes, this is useful. Anybody have any questions about anything? All right, perfect. Thanks all for the compliments. I've got some. This is very good. All right, thank you. All right, so let's talk about one last thing here, which is around onboarding. So this is another place where I see organizations really failing in culture. So onboarding is an opportunity to bring a new hire into your culture and really make them see how amazing your workplace is. And so many organizations don't take that opportunity. So training is about, you know, here's how you do your job. Onboarding is about bringing someone into the culture. And there's 4 areas you need to focus on in your onboarding programs. First off is clarity. Clarity has to do with, you know, perhaps on-the-job training, but it also has to do with clarity around someone's role, helping them understand where they fit in the bigger picture. Confidence. You have to ensure that people feel confident to do their job as quickly as possible. So they need to have a full understanding of the culture in addition to their job tasks if they're going to feel confident. You need people to experience self-efficacy pretty quickly after getting a job with you. Connection is another area you need to focus on. So you need people to feel connected to their peers, their job and their job tasks, and the organization's vision and mission statement. And then again, culture. You need people to understand your organization's culture. Now, two big tips for onboarding. One is to involve absolutely everyone you can possibly involve. So I see a lot of times organizations only HR is responsible for onboarding, or maybe the manager gets involved a little bit, but usually the team around this new hire is focused on training them, but they're not involved in onboarding them. Involve everyone in onboarding a new employee and make onboarding a celebration. So, I get that when you hire a new person in, it's a little bit time consuming. People can feel like they're bogged down. It's a lot of work to bring this new person in. And if the new person feels that, if they feel that people are sort of annoyed and frustrated that they have to take time out of their day, that's going to affect the new hire, and your turnover goes up. Your chances of them leaving go up. If you celebrate them and make them feel welcome and that you're excited that they're there, that's a whole nother vibe. So one example that I absolutely love is one organization I was reading about. They actually have a throne in their cafeteria, and at the end of a new hire's first week, the new hire sits in the throne and they have a party in this new hire's honor. So the new hire gets to be king or queen for a couple hours at this party, and actually the whole organization does a little dance for this new hire. I guarantee they have a pretty low turnover rate. Think about what that would feel like if your whole organization celebrated you when you started at your organization. I mean, that's fabulous. So here are some other fun ideas for onboarding that will involve everyone. So one is ask the new hires team to create a basket of goodies. Just, maybe each person puts something in the basket that's really about them, or really about something they like to do, or, just a way to say, here, welcome, we put this together for you. This is another great one. Record a video of the new hires team and send it out before the first day of work. So this is free and easy. Get your phone out, walk over to the department where the new hire is going to work, ask the team to come together and just say, hey, we're looking forward to meeting you, and have them introduce themselves, and then send the video to the new hire. How welcome would you feel if you had gotten a video like that? Take new hires around the property to see the layout, and then give them a scavenger hunt on the second day to make sure they understand the property. So it's just another way to sort of get them, make onboarding more fun. Another idea is to give the new hire a bingo card with information about employees, and then have them get bingo by the end of the first week. So for example, the bingo card would have little bits of information about different people. So maybe one square says, went skydiving 2 weeks ago, and then that new hire has to figure out who that tidbit of information belongs to, and then it gives them something to talk about. It's a good conversation starter, gives them the opportunity to get to know their employees. And then another idea is to make sure that your company history is really interesting for the new hire. So a lot of times, another organizational fail I see, organizations put like a paragraph of company history in their corporate policy handbook, and that's it. Well, people have to be attached to the company in order to feel engaged and excited. So that's not engaging. So figure out another more interesting way to share the company's history so that this new hire feels attached to the company. Now, we give clients an entire big, long 14-page checklist, actually, and you can see on the checklist, we assign different tasks to HR, the manager, and the team, so that this is HR's way to say, here's your checklist, team, and you're involved in onboarding, and you need to make sure you can fulfill all of these tasks. So I'll tell you how to get to that onboarding checklist here in a couple minutes. So something else I recommend doing is measuring onboarding. So you want to measure how satisfied the new hire is with the onboarding, but you also want to measure how the manager feels about the onboarding. So don't forget to do that. Managers are involved in it. You need to make sure that they feel good about it. One other way to manage onboarding, or to measure it, is through this sort of score sheet that we have. And notice at the bottom there's a place for the manager to sort of keep their eye out for social integration and sort of monitor what this employee's social integration is looking like. There's a place for core values. How well is this person meeting the core values? So this is a great score sheet to measure onboarding and make sure that people are doing well as they move through your organization. So why did you show up today? Well, I'm assuming you're here because you want to ensure your organization has a positive, thriving workplace culture. And you might be feeling like you're here. Culture is very intangible. It feels hard to get to. You might be feeling like you're sort of on this desolate road to nowhere. Where do you begin with culture? How does it work? What can you really be doing? What are the most important steps? And maybe you'd rather feel like you're here. You know, you're on a much easier, more beautiful road, and maybe you can stop and smell the flowers or purchase some seashells along the way. You know, I'm sure you want to feel like you're a lot farther down the road of culture than you already are. Well, there's two ways to go down that road. You can either go down that road as a tortoise or a hare. Do you want to go fast or slow? So I've got a gift for you to help you go down the path a lot more fast, a lot quicker, and that is with my 8-module new online class, the Workplace Culture Makeover Masterclass. So if you like the tips that you heard today and you want to obtain some of the things that I've mentioned, like the survey questions and the onboarding checklist and a whole lot more stuff, then this course is for you. The Workplace Culture Makeover Masterclass is absolutely the most cost-effective and easiest way to make culture change. And when I say easy, I know culture change in and of itself is not easy. It is a process. But when I say easy, I'm saying that I've broken the process up for you into bite-sized steps, and you can make culture change without an expensive consultant. You can make change without getting lost in the weeds. I literally, through these 8 modules, will take you through culture change step by step by step. You get an 8-module online learning program. There's 35 training videos in there and 36 handouts and counting. And I will also give you slides and a workbook and a facilitator's guide for 2 of my training programs. So when I work with organizations to create a new culture, I do these very specific training programs along the way, and I'm going to give you those training programs so that you can do the training yourself. And that in and of itself is pretty awesome. I would charge $5 to $7 grand minimum to do those trainings for you. I'm actually giving you the ability to do the trainings yourself. So here's what's in the course. So we'll go through conducting surveys. I give you a survey bank of questions to choose from. You'll learn how to interpret those results and put your report together. You'll learn how to create an action committee and a plan for change. You'll learn how to use your vision and core values. You'll learn how to use your performance management system to drive change and to drive culture. And you'll learn about interviewing and onboarding tips for driving culture. And again, in Module 7, I'm going to give you my training programs. You'll get the slides, the attendee workbook, and a facilitator's guide so that you can deliver a training company-wide to all of your employees, and so you can deliver a training to your managers and supervisors, around how to create a positive team, how to facilitate a positive workplace culture inside those managers and supervisors teams. So by the end of the 8 modules, you'll have created and distributed a survey to your organization. You'll have created an action committee to help you make change. You'll have implemented and executed a strategic plan. You'll have trained your workforce using my training materials. You'll have updated your performance management system, and you'll have updated your recruiting, interviewing, and onboarding processes. Now, I'm going to be charging $16.97 for this course, but I'm offering a pre-order price right now of $14.97. So the deal is that the course launches on November 10. It's not quite done yet. We are putting the finishing touches on it. It's not available until November 10. So you have until November 10 to buy the course at $14.97. Once November 10 hits, it goes up to $16.97. It'll never be $14.97 again. And if you buy the course before November 10, I will give you a pre-order bonus. You'll get another training program for your leaders and managers. So this is 2 training programs now for your leaders and managers that will help you create a positive culture. So this other training is essentially around going from being a manager to being a leader and how to influence and get buy-in as a leader. So here is where you would go to get the course, civility-partners.com/makeover. This is a total value of over $6,000. So again, you get the full 8-module culture makeover online course. You get my 2 training programs that I would deliver if I was working with you as a consultant. I would charge between $5,000 and $7,000 to come to your work site and do that training. I'm giving you the materials, so I've priced them at around $1,500. Plus you get the pre-sale bonus, this other training program. So 3 training programs from me that you can deliver yourself. The other thing is that I'm so confident in these steps. I know that they work. I know that everything I've told you to do in the course will work. And if you do the work and you're not satisfied, if you don't see culture change, I will refund your money. That's how confident I am in the course and the fact that I know it absolutely can help you build a certain kind of a culture. So again, here's where you go, civility-partners.com/makeover. Again, the price is $14.97 until November 10. So here's what's going to happen next. You're going to go to civility-partners.com/makeover. You'll scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll click on that Enroll Now button. You'll fill out a credit card payment form so that you can purchase the course. And then from there, you'll get an email receipt from me. And then on November 10, when the course becomes available, you will get an email with your login information and you'll have full access to the course on November 10. Just a reminder, nothing I've shared with you today is theory. Every single one of these steps works. I know that because I use them with my clients. I use the forms that I'm going to give you with my clients. This is all supported by my own experiences working in culture change and helping organizations solve bad problems with their culture. And also this is supported by the experience of other experts in the field of change. So here's where you go again, civility-partners.com/makeover. It's $14.97 until November 10. So just curious, do you have any questions? We've got 3 minutes left. Any questions about the course or anything else that we've covered in the webinar today? I'm happy to answer. And maybe I'll ask you a question. Who is headed over to civility-partners.com/makeover to purchase the course? Who's on board? I got one me with an exclamation. I got a go into the link now with an exclamation point. That's awesome. Anybody else? All right, I'm getting another yes. I'm headed there now. Any questions about the course or about anything we've covered today? I have another yes. Perfect. I will see you in the course. I'm so excited to have you there. Any comments or questions? Someone says, I have to think about it because it feels expensive but sounds interesting. Check it out. It's only $14.97 and it's going to make a world of difference for your organization. Your employees will thank you. You will be a hero. Turnover in and of itself is super expensive. I can, the $14.97 will cover saving one employee. So once one employee is saved, you've already got ROI on the investment. So this is an investment. So don't look at it as a cost. It's an investment and you will definitely earn your money back. Let's see. I'm new to HR. Do you think it would be beneficial for me to do the course? Absolutely. If you're new to HR, all the more reason to do the course because I see a lot of times, actually one of the other sort of problems I see with clients I work with is that HR is too focused on that compliance administrative stuff, and this is an opportunity to learn how to be a much more strategic HR partner. So absolutely a great way to build your career in HR. Let's see, will I be sending the replay link? Absolutely, I will be. You'll get the replay link here within the next hour, I would say. Any tips on how to get buy-in from your leaders? Well, I do have some tips on that, as a matter of fact. Again, leaders are very quantitative people. They need data. They make decisions using a dashboard, oftentimes, that tells them all about everything that's going on in the organization, numbers-wise. If you can talk to your HR about turnover, for example, if you have turnover, if you can talk to your leader about turnover, and talk about the fact that turnover is expensive. They say that turnover costs between 30 and 60% of a person's annual salary. So if you have one person leave who says in their exit interview that they left because of the culture or because they were unhappy with their manager, if you can save that one person, there's your ROI. So you have to talk with your leaders about the ROI of the investment. $14.97 is nothing compared to better customer service, happier employees, lowered turnover. So talk about it in terms of ROI. Okay, another question. Is your course applicable for learning credits? Monique, I have not yet obtained specific certification where I can, say, yes, here's the number for the credits, but I'm also have the same needs in terms of continuing credits, and I know that you can submit kind of general learning things that you do for credits. So I'm 99.9% sure that if you submitted the course for credits, they would approve them. So we haven't quite yet taken the leap to get the official stamp of approval for credits. I would be shocked and appalled if they didn't give you credits. And every speech I've ever given to any HR association has always been for credits, and this is the same information that I'm out there talking about. So I could say, again, 99.9% sure you would get credits for it, 100%. Let's see. The manager talks about staff and not in a good way. There's a lot of conflict and fighting. Why don't you shoot me an email? My email address is there. Let's talk about that offline. That is a problem I'm happy to help you with, but I would prefer to get a little more information and hear more from you. So go ahead and shoot me an email and we can set up a time to chat. I'm happy to give you some advice. Let's see, I missed part, but looking forward to being able to share the presentation with the COO. I've always been interested in this. Perhaps the time is right for us. That would be awesome. Cynthia, I know that we have talked a lot about getting you into some of my culture stuff, so I would love to have you in the course. All right, and I've got to thank you for the information. All right, any other comments or questions before we end the webinar? All right, all. Well, thank you so much for spending an hour of your time with me this morning. Keep your eyes peeled for the replay. We'll include the core values list in the replay email, and we'll see you inside the course. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you inside the Makeover Masterclass. Have a great day. Ooh, someone says I'm here from Italy. Look at that. We're worldwide already. Thanks again.